Come over to ztrades.net, check out the terms and conditions page. If you don't agree to it, don't join the Discord and don't watch this video. If you do agree to it, feel free to join the Discord, which is free right here. Let's jump into it. I want to teach you guys how everybody fumbled the ball. Again, we're not collapsing because of what the other plans were. We could have had, you guys know how bad it could have been? The way we were going, they were doing nothing about inflation. They didn't do anything before over the last 4 years. What do you think would have happened? They were going to move right into World War III with Russia through proxy wars. Printing money to buy bombs, making you poor, and taxes have to go up, right? So oligarchs can get rich, US politicians and Ukrainian politicians and oligarchs. You don't get any of that money. And you guys are supporting that, and you're flat broke and you're poor and you can't buy a house. Are you kidding me? That doesn't work. That doesn't work. We're collapsing because we're trying to get things under control. We dropped, not collapsing. So we're dropping for a good reason. Now President Trump is trying to go to the Supreme Court to try to have the ability, get the ability to fire Powell to get someone who's going to inject liquidity in the market, and this thing can go parabolic. You really wanted it to go up from here? That's not how you get rich. When we're miles high above the 20 EMA, how you get rich is you're buying off the 200 when it drops, and we were there. And a lot of y'all have missed it now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a period over here. There's multiple periods, but 5, 6. You've had 6 opportunities in 10 years. 6 opportunities to buy in 10 years. And people waited. Let's use an example here. Okay? I usually give this out in mentoring. It's simply logic. A lot of this is just logic. 2 scenarios. I'm going to go through the average. Everyone has the same view. It doesn't matter if you're an engineer, white, black, Asian, man, woman, what age you are, what your profession is, or IQ is. Everybody is the same. I see the same thing. I've been doing this almost 10 years. And I know that because I have the same emotions that everybody else has. Even though we're all different individuals, we get the same emotions. Right? Unless you're like a 18-year-old rich boy and your parents have millions and they're like, oh, here's money and money's nothing to you. Then you're like, oh, I don't care. And you buy. That's different. That's different. I noticed that pattern with the kids, that people that didn't have to earn their money and they're just, they've got ultra wealthy mommy and daddy. They're different. But those of us who have to work for our money, that money is representing labor. That could represent years of labor. That's serious. I'm going to have 3 years of my hard labor. Poof, gone. Of course you're going to have fear. But this thing is bounced back every single time. And again, this isn't World War III. This is tariffs. And like that, they can take them off, which they did. And we ripped, right? They paused them. And all the countries are folding. They have to. A lot of countries have to. They're screwed without us. China is going to be hard. And that's what scares me. And yes, we needed to do this. We had to do this. You can't just let them just keep raising it forever. That's your answer? Right? We need manufacturing here in the US, guys. We have illegals coming in the tens of millions across the border taking jobs, then AI causing hundreds of thousands of layoffs, and you want manufacturing to remain outside of the country, and then on top of that, like what? Use your head. If we keep going on the path we're going, everything's destroyed. Something has to be done. And in the reorganization, we're going to drop. This is a good dip to buy. This isn't World War III and then no one's taking care of inflation and we'll just print money and fire it off at when there's problems. Stock market's down. We'll make the AI chip bill, which I liked. And that's cronyism and you can make money off that. Although I'm an anti-cronyist, but I kind of agree with it, what the Biden administration was doing at the time, because China was about to be getting ahead. They want to make sure these companies are leading the AI game. I agree with them on that. And that's why the market went up. But the rest of the companies, mid-size, small size, are suffering, and businesses and consumers have been in for 5 years a recession. Credit card debt at all-time high, loan delinquencies, all that. Let me get into this, right? So things are about to get better. And that's another video. I mean, think about it. If people aren't taxed on the first $150,000 they make, and then gas becomes cheaper, which is more money in their pockets with the cars they drive, then on top of that, energy is cheaper, which means cost of goods to ship it goes down, plastic, makeup, everything. Energy affects the price of everything, which is then more money in people's pockets. Where does that money go? It gets dumped back into the economy. Which does what? Which means companies' earnings are better. Isn't that a good idea? If it works, I don't think it's going to work. The under 150,000 could work. They may make it under 100, right? But 100's nowadays, you know, you all know. You younger people know what 100 is. The baby boomers, they don't. I'm sorry, I love you guys, but you guys don't. You guys don't know how useless that is now, where you're forced to work in a city and you got to pay $3,000 rent if you don't want to get killed, unalived, you know. I got to watch my words on YouTube here. I almost said a no word. But anyways, here's how you invest. Here's two scenarios, okay? All that money represents hard labor, and you're afraid that if you put your money in it, that it's going to be worth less. But every time it's bounced every time. It's came back every time. The probability of it not coming back pretty low because it's always came back 100% of the time. We're using SCHG. This is basically SPY. This is basically QQQ, because the companies that this is focusing more on the companies that actually make SPY and the Qs move, which is why it performs better, right? 3 funds, JEPI for yield, which diversifies into value stocks. That's what I'm in. SCHG Growth Fund, which covers a lot of tech. SOXX Semiconductor ETF, which has outperformed everything. I'm not buying into low volatility funds because it doesn't go up, and then when there's a crash, then you're starting back where you were 5 years ago. Makes no sense to me. So you're afraid to invest, right? Because when you put money in, it might be lower. That affects your net worth, but it always bounces back. Well, what also affects your net worth is if you didn't put money in and then it goes higher, that affects your net worth too. What's a bigger risk? If it bounces back every time, well, eventually I get my money back. I'm not going to be a pansy. You know, the newbies will be like, oh my gosh, I'm buying the dip. You know, are we near the 200? We were almost there. Anywhere in between the 100 and the 200 on a weekly on these ETFs or large cap companies, not crappy speculative companies like Candy. You all remember Candy, the EV company? Or some solar company loaded with debt, but an ETF or a company that's mature. Anytime we're in between the 100 and the 200 or at the anchored VWAP, a lot of you guys don't use that, so ignore that, or the 200. In between the 100, in between the 200, or at the 200 and below is a fantastic buy in fourths. Let's say I have 100,000. And unfortunately, I've only put the money that I wanted to allocate, I want to put 100 grand out there, 6 figs. I've only put 30K in, and I'm upset. But here's how I do it. By the first lot, here's a crash of 2022. 25K, 25K, 25K. I'm going to leave a last lot and slowly scale in. I have to have some cash in case we keep going lower. And then you're boxed out. Doesn't matter, though. Right? Doesn't matter. I have some dry powder left, some cash. I always want some cash left. It's in a money market. It's earning around 4%. So that's fine. It's like a dividend stock earning 4%. That's how I do it. I scale in slowly. If you have a large sum, where do I put the 100K in? Maybe it'll go lower. You're never going to do it. You just slowly start buying. That's what I do. I slowly start buying. Boom, 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 right? Hopefully it goes lower and I can start scaling in half of the 25, half of the 6.5, leave some cash in case it goes lower. Soon enough, it'll reverse. So I've bought SOXX. We were well below the 200 right here. Well below it. Look at the buying opportunity. Look at every time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've had 5, 6 chances in 10 years to buy the dip. 6. That's it. In a decade. Hopefully, a lot of you didn't miss it. Am I going to buy now that we're rejecting on Anchor VWAP? Probably not. I'm going to hope that we come down, and that's where I think we're going to go. Keep in mind, guys, Trump is trying to get rid of, ask the Supreme Court to have the ability to fire, I'm paraphrasing now, but he wants to fire Powell. He wants to get rid of him. If he does, and we get someone else in, this market could go parabolic. Absolutely parabolic. Loony. Inflation's coming down, but let's see CPI. Let's see what happens when CPI comes out. What I'm afraid of is tariffs affecting inflation. Let's see what happens. That's what I'm worried about. And then permanent baked in inflation with China. The other countries, they're all going to comply, right? Somewhat. It'll at least be better than what it is now. So next time we get a big dip, definitely, I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm saying what I'm going to do is I'm going to be scaling in more and more and more and more, and I'm going to sell covered calls on this thing. This thing has split multiple times. Can you imagine getting this? You have 100 to 200 shares, and you're in at like 115, 125, and this thing shoots to 500 when we get a new Fed share in. And I'm selling $600 covered calls weekly, or 550s, 575s. The money I could make per week is stupid. It could be like $1,000 a week for something way, way out of the money. Way out of the money. And on Friday, if it's in the money, I could roll it or I could wheel it. And I could be making 50K just off covered calls with this thing, increasing 4x. 100 grand turns into 500 grand, and then I'm making 50 grand a year in realized income. That's what you have the chance to do when you buy these dips, right? If you guys like this information, make sure to like, follow, comment for more. Join the Discord. It's completely free to join.